You are listening to the Decluttering Club Podcast, episode number 30. Today, we're talking about burnout.
You are listening to the Decluttering Club Podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Mueller, and it's my mission to equip women to declutter their homes, their time, and their lives so that they can cherish what truly
Sarah
matters.
Mueller here, and I am here today with a really quick training for you on preventing and maybe recovering from burnout. This is a topic that I've noticed is coming up a lot in our communities, in our groups. And so I thought, hey, let's talk about it because we can absolutely help you with this, whether, whether you're kind of in the middle of burnout or whether you just want to prevent it in the future. And I've been there. Like I have absolutely been there. So I can absolutely relate and empathize with you if that's something that you struggle with. And we want you to know that we're here for you, right? That is what our community is here for. And that alone will make a difference, right? When we don't feel like we're alone, when we feel like there's other people who see us, who understand us, who are even available to listen, it changes the game. So, first of all, let's define burnout. What is burnout? You might be like, I have been there, or maybe you haven't. You're like, I'm not quite sure. So I looked it up. I looked up the definition of burnout. And what I found was that burnout is very simply, it is physical or mental collapse, okay, caused by overwork or stress. That's it. Can be physical, can be mental, caused by overwork or stress. Okay. Really, really like straightforward. Like if you have collapsed, you might be suffering from burnout, right? Are you overworking your body or is it stress? Are you overworking your mind, right? Your brain. Both of those can lead to burnout. And, I think sometimes we think, well, I should just suck it up. Anyone ever thought that? I should just suck it up or I have to push through. Right? That is all well and good, and there's definitely a time for it, but you want to be careful because the more you do that, right, and the more that you overwork your body or the more that you ignore what's going on in your brain, the more likely you are to collapse. Sooner or later, your body is going to say, like, forget it. We have to stop. And that is what happens when you just like cannot go on. Okay. So I thought that was just really interesting, really, really straightforward, right? Okay, so I have a quote. I love quotes. Where did my quote go? I love just wisdom from other people, my favorite authors or people from history or things like that. So I have a quote that I want to share with you, and then we're going to dive in. So this is from a book called Be Your Future Self Now by Dr. Benjamin Hardy. This is an amazing book. If you're a reader, you're going to love this book. He says, without a connection to your future purpose, the present is a prison. Without a connection to your future purpose, the present is a prison. Okay. And what this means is we need to know why we are doing things. We need to know, like, why are you decluttering? That's why we ask you that question. You need to know. You need a strong reason, because if you don't know why, right, or if that why isn't really that important to you, then you're going to be spinning your wheels. You're going to be feeling completely stuck, right? And that is the present is a prison, right? If you can't see ahead into the future, like where we are right now, today feels terrible and we can't even imagine a way out of it. But that purpose, knowing that purpose is like it's like the bridge, right, to whatever you're dealing with right now into the future. Okay, so it's really important that you know what that is and that you connect with that, ideally on a regular basis. I remember back when we first started, way back, I'm talking probably 5 years ago now, I started teaching decluttering. We had one of our members, her name is Judy King, and we tell this story all the time. Love her to pieces. She wanted to clear out her guest room so that her grandkids could spend the night and have their own room, right? And when she started, the grandkids were sleeping on the couch because the guest room was not available for them. It was full of stuff, right? And that purpose for her kept her going over and over and over again. And there were times when it was really hard. And when she did not want to keep going, but she just kept coming back to that purpose, and that was the fuel that got her through. So I want you all to cling to your purpose, your why, and especially when the going gets tough. Now, we want to be aware, we want to identify with that purpose, but we don't want to work so hard that we burn out. Okay? So how do we do that? And where's the difference? Where does the boundary lie? This is what I think. Okay? And again, burnout can be either physical or it can be mental. So we're going to address those two things separately. Okay, so first is the physical. And I feel like this is a little bit easier to handle. Okay, if you work your body too hard, you're going to regret it. You're going to pay for it. If you carry too many boxes, or, if you clean for too many hours, or whatever it is, your body is going to let you know about it later on. And it may be so much so that you cannot continue working, and you literally have to completely stop and wait to recover, right? And we know this, but here's the thing, like, we all know this, but sometimes we're just not paying attention, right? And we think, well, I'm fine, right? I can keep going. I'm okay. And we're not paying attention to the signs that our bodies are giving us, right? And we're doing way more than really is a good idea for us. The other thing that happens frequently is that we are doing the amount of work that might be good for us, or appropriate, or reasonable, on our very best day. Okay? Or maybe on our very best day 15 years ago. Has that happened to you? You're like, gosh, when I was 30, like, this would be no problem. But now, 49 and counting, not so much. Like, it's different. I am not the same person. And some of us, like, get mad about this. And we think, oh my gosh, like, what's wrong with me? I used to be able to carry all of these boxes back and forth and lift things and move things. And, like, physically, I used to be able to do it. And now it is different. I know we have a lot of members in our group that are, 70. I know I read something from someone today. She said she was 83. She is not going to be able to do the things that she did when she was 33. Like, this is a fact of life. And if we try to argue with that, we're just going to lose. Only all the time. Okay, so we want to notice this, and we want to just, like, be aware, and then we want to adjust. Okay, this is just like, these are just plain and simple, like, your body is not the same body as it was last year or 10 years ago. And also, are you planning for, let's say, the body, the strength that you have on your very best day, when you got 8 hours of sleep and you ate, amazingly over the last 6 months, right? Like, consider what's going on for you on, on a typical day, not on your very best day when all the stars are aligned and you're in a great mood. Right? We really want to be aware of that, because we can really, really take care of ourselves in a much better way when we're thinking about this. Okay? We have so much more available to us when we take into account, like, what is my capacity today? Now, I am not saying that we just give up and sit on the couch. Okay? That's kind of the opposite, right? Like, we can burn out by working too hard, or we can also burn out by not doing anything. Right? And I'm not saying that you just, like, say, well, I'm just not up to anything, and then you give yourself a pass. There's a difference between giving yourself a pass and between giving yourself grace. These are not the same thing. So only like, do I have physical strength in my body today to do this thing? And if the answer is no, for sure, you're like, I really don't have that strength, then you need to rest. Then you give yourself grace. But if the answer is, I just don't feel like it, or, I'm really not in the mood, that is a different story. And that is when you do want to get up and get moving. And that's when there's other things in place that you can use to support yourself. Okay. And we will get to that. Right. But again, just planning your work for the body that you live in today. Okay. Not last year, not 10 years ago, all of that, right? Keep that in mind. And that will probably mean, especially if, this is something that you haven't been doing regularly, it may mean that you have to go slower. And we don't want to do this. And everybody hates this, right? I am constantly telling people to slow down. What's the rush? Why are we in such a hurry to get this done? Because everybody thinks, I'm going to push through, I'm going to power through, and then it's going to be all great. And usually when I hear that kind of thing, I get a little worried, because if you are always pushing through and always just powering through, you're telling yourself that you don't want to do this for the long haul, right? You're like, I just got to do it this weekend. Well, what about next weekend? What about next month and next year? If you push through today, if you're just trying to cram it through, then you're not going to have anything left for next month and next year, and your body will rebel by burning out. Okay, so you want to slow down in most instances. You want to have a plan. Okay, if you go slower, but you work with a plan, you may actually get more done. This is the shocker here. This is so amazing. It's kind of like, if you wanted to drive somewhere, if you wanted to take a road trip and it was 3 hours away, if you knew where you were going, you could go in a pretty much a straight line and get from point A to point B. If you don't know where you're going and you're just going to wing it, you're probably going in circles and you're making wrong turns, and it's going to take you 12 hours and you might not even get there because you don't really know how you're supposed to get there. This is what happens when we work, when we declutter, when we organize without a plan. Like, how would you possibly imagine that you could get to your destination if you don't have a plan? That plan is going to let you get where you want to go more or less in a straight line. Now, there's going to be bumps along the way for sure. But if you have a plan, then you can pace yourself. You can take that road trip. You can take a stop. You can stop for lunch, and it's all good because you're on the right path. And maybe there's a detour or there's traffic, right? And that's okay. But you're still making progress. Okay, so it's really important. All right, so we want to plan for the physical body that we are in right now. We want to slow down a little bit. We also want to quit. This is what I call quitting while you're ahead. Quitting while you're ahead, especially if you are prone to overworking. You want to stop before you are completely exhausted. You really do. And again, we don't like to do this. We're like, I'm on a roll. I feel good here. This is where self-discipline kicks in, and you really need to say, you know what, I am on a roll, but also I want to save a little energy for later. I probably need to do a little cleanup, and it's better to stop, like at an appropriate stopping point, as opposed to push, and then all of a sudden, I've overdone it. All right, so quit while you're ahead. One of my favorite things ever. I mean, I apply this to all kinds of things. Like when my kids were little, and they'd have friends over, and they're having a great time, right? If we let them go and play for, 10 hours, they're probably going to end up cranky and overtired. But if we end the play date when they're still having fun, right, then that's called quitting while you're ahead. They might be a little bit disappointed. It's fun, playtime is over, but they have ended that play date with happy feelings, and feeling good, as opposed to like being mad and being frustrated and like overtired, right? So in some sense, maybe we're a little bit like little kids. We need to take care of ourselves and quit while we're ahead before we get cranky and tired and worn out. Okay, so that's the physical aspect of preventing burnout, or let's say getting out of burnout, right? Taking care of ourselves, like actually paying attention to our physical needs, right? Like I said, I think that's a little bit more straightforward than the second piece, which is the mental piece. Okay, because maybe you're not really working that hard. You're like, I don't know why. I haven't really moved that many things today. I haven't really done that much, but I am mentally exhausted, right? Or mentally, my body is telling me I can't do another thing, right? So why does this happen? All right, here are some reasons why this will happen. Could be decision fatigue. Right? Maybe you are just making so many decisions. Your brain is like, I'm out of decision making power. It takes a lot of energy to make decisions, a ton of energy. That's why we love to move things into habits, right? Because it takes almost no effort to do something out of habit. You don't have to think about getting up and, let's say, driving to work in the morning or to the grocery store. Nobody's thinking hard about that. We all know how to do that. We have lots of, let's say maybe 90% of our brain power when we're driving to the store is available to think about other stuff, right? But if you're trying to make decisions about, let's say, where to put things, or should I let this go, or should I keep this, now all of a sudden it's a lot of extra work. Okay, so that decision fatigue is real. And we have some frameworks that we can teach you that will make that easier too. Right? The other things that are coming up, maybe you're dealing with a lot of regret. You're like, gosh, I don't, or guilt, right? Or overwhelm. Maybe you're looking at your house and you're thinking, I'm so overwhelmed. I don't know where to start. What if I, what if? And so all these emotions and these questions are kind of spinning around in our heads. And so that can lead to burnout as well. Okay. So what do we do about that? Well, first of all, you are here. So kudos. That is, we can help you with every one of these obstacles that come up. Okay. But here are some quick tips. First of all, you want a plan, right? And we already talked about that a little bit. You want to have a plan for what you are decluttering. Because if you have a plan, at least you can follow the plan instead of just like saying, okay, it's time to declutter. Let's go. And nobody knows what to do. All right. And then we have to think about it. We have to figure it out. And then we end up going in circles. Okay. So you want to have a plan. You want to have the community. Again, when you feel like there are other people who understand you, or who can, give you a pat on the back or can listen if you're having a hard day, like that alone can help that burnout to be lifted. Your community can tell you, maybe you need to take a break. Like it's normal to feel this way. Just knowing that what you're feeling is normal can make that feeling a little bit less hard. Okay. It's really, really interesting how that works. Then you want to, we'll get to this one in a second. You want to pace yourself, right? Again, both physically and mentally. Maybe you can only take an hour of decision making and decluttering per day. That's okay. If you did that, but you did it every day for a month, you'd have 30 hours under your belt. It's amazing, right? But again, we're in such a hurry that we do too much, we burn out, and then we stop for however long. And maybe, sometimes people will stop for a year, and it's like, well, are you willing to slow down to get where you want to go? Right? And sometimes it takes a little bit of a crash and burn before people are willing to say, oh yeah, okay, I guess I do need to slow down. Right? I guess I do need to pace myself. And then the last thing I'm going to offer to you is I want you to consider the alternative, right? So, and I'll tell you what I mean by that. Now, a lot of times we are very positive around here. We really want to encourage you. We want to tell you, hey, you can do this. This is absolutely positive. But there's also the flip side, right? There is a flip side, and it's important that we're aware of that. Okay, and so I have a story that I want to use to illustrate this. Okay, so it's probably 8 years ago. I hadn't gone to the dentist in a while. Okay, and I knew this was a bad idea, but I didn't care. And I didn't want to go, right? And I was just like, hey, yeah, I'll figure that out later. I was kind of like, I'd left my previous dentist and I hadn't picked a new one. And I was just like, I don't know, I just don't want to deal with it. So I kept pushing it off, right? Kept pushing it off. Well, you can imagine what happened, right? Like it's just a question of time before that caught up with me. And it did in a horrible way. And I got a toothache. And I think I was on vacation during the toothache. And it ruined my vacation because I could not, I had this pain and it was not pretty. And then I had to go and get a root canal and, all the whole 9 yards, right? So this is what I just want to make you aware of. We are all about being positive around here, but I also want you to just consider what happens if I'm not willing to pace myself. What happens if I'm not willing to try this out? Try the decluttering challenge. Let something go. What happens if I never let anything go? What actually happens, right? And we all can see, right? If you are not letting things go on a regular basis, especially if your spaces are full, that sooner or later, this is going to become an even bigger problem. Okay. And at some point, it's going to become such a problem that you will be motivated to act. So maybe you're not there yet, right? Like me with the toothache, took me a long time before I was actually motivated. And it was motivation by pain. Pain is a wonderful motivator. But most of the time, we will all say, you know what? I really wish I had acted sooner. Right? But my priority for you is really that you get to know us, that you practice these ideas, that you learn some skills, and that you declutter one space, right? And you get to decide how big the space is. The space could be your entire room, if you're up for it. Could be a horrible room, or maybe it's something much smaller, right? There's no wrong answers here, but we really want to help you do that and to take that next step, because we don't want it to wait, right? We don't want you to get to the point where you have a crisis. You got that toothache, because then then your options are so much more limited, and it's going to cost more money. It's going to be way more painful, and you're just going to be wishing that you had taken action, right? So this is a tool, right? This fear, it's really a fear, right? You can use it. It can actually be productive, right? If you manage it. And we're here to help you manage it. It can be a productive force towards helping you to keep going, right? And we love to use positive motivation, right? I am not going to tell you horror stories. I'm not. That's not what I'm about. But I also want you to be aware, right, that there is that negative. And, we hear from so many people, and it breaks my heart. We hear from so many people that say, I wish I had done it earlier. I wish I had done it earlier, right? And so we want to help everybody that we can to not be in that situation and be able to take action proactively when they have the control, when they have a little bit more time, when they can make decisions, right? And so that's super important, okay? So again, just to recap, okay? Burnout, physical or mental collapse caused by overwork or stress, right? And the solution to physical overwork is to slow down, to pace yourself. Maybe it's to get some help, right? Involve the family, hire some help, whatever needs to happen there, right? But then the emotional piece, the mental piece, is where we can really support you in terms of helping you learn how to make decisions, helping you to let go, helping you to structure your thoughts, right? And learn new ways of thinking about things so that you're not so stressed. Because here's the really interesting thing, right? Like right now, you look at a space that you want to declutter and you're probably pretty stressed about it, right? You're super stressed about it. It feels terrible. You'll be able to look at that space, and you may not love that space, but you're going to feel, let's say, a different level of stress, or maybe you're going to feel hopeful, or maybe you're going to be confident. It's the same space, but now you have tools, you have strategies, you have support, you have ideas, maybe you have some practice, you've built some skills. And when you have skills and tools and strategies and practice, now the stress level is different. So we can help you bring that stress level down even before you are done with the physical work. We can help you do that, right? And then that will result in less burnout. You'll be able to work more. You'll be able to pace yourself. You'll be able to go farther, right? And again, it's your same body, it's your same house, but because you have these tools available to you and that you're going to become more practiced in using them, then you're going to be less prone to burnout. Because again, now you know what to do, right? And the not knowing is much worse than just knowing, okay, this is what I need to do. Like I'm in, I can do it. That's all we have for you today. If you enjoyed this podcast, would you leave us a review? It would really help us get the word out. To start your decluttering journey, go to thedeclutteringclub.com. That is declutteringclub.com. I'll see you next time.